Hey guys, welcome to lesson number 22. We're really starting to get some details now into the face. I continued a little bit after last lesson, just starting to add a little bit more 2B and bringing out some of the highlighted areas with the kneaded eraser. So that's a process that we're going to keep going through, but I think we've got enough value in here now to start adding the basic structures of the hair, and I wanted to really sort of go through this sort of step by step with you. So we're going to be mainly using our 2B pencil today. I've made sure that I've sharpened it, and what we're going to be doing, if you can see in the reference here, is we're going to be starting to work in the negative spaces or the dark spaces. Now, when we're working with blonde hair, you can't actually get a blonde hair represented by a pencil stroke, so we're going to be using the mono zero eraser and the kneaded eraser, but we're going to start working in these dark areas here using the brush to brush the value in, and then we're going to be able to start taking some of these whiter strands of hair out. So without further ado, I'm going to start in this region over here. Let me bring this, let's see, making sure that you can see it. What we're going to do then is, once we've started to get a little bit of value into these darker areas of the hair, it's then going to tell us whether we need to bring any more contrast up into the actual face itself. So we're not 100% finished with the face, the details in the eye, etc. But what we are doing is we're at a stage now that we're quite happy with, and we may need to add a little bit more value. In certain areas, we may need to tone back a bit of the value, depending on how dark we need to go in some of these recesses of the hair and within the hair, because we've got a lot of different values within this hair here. So we've got some very dark areas, we've got some highlighted areas within the dark areas, but they're not going to be as light as some of these whiter strands here. So using it, like I said, the 2B pencil, and just using the tapered stroke to bring just a little bit of texture into some of these areas. Now, we've spoken about this a little bit when we were doing the last project, which was the eye project. You don't need to try and draw every single strand of hair. What we're looking at is we're looking at shapes and clumps. So we are trying to get a look of hair. We don't want it to be as smooth. We don't want to keep the lines as smooth and as close together as we were doing with the skin itself, but what we do want is we want a line that represents hairs in the darker areas, and a little bit of the paper showing through in some of those slightly highlighted areas. I've been having loads of fun again with this drawing. I've loved seeing some of your progress. We've had quite a lot of new members. We're sort of hovering around the 2,000 members mark now in the Facebook group, so that's really exciting. And I didn't think when I first made a few of these initial videos that we would get anywhere near that this quickly. So it's been brilliant seeing you on there. I know we've been joking recently about some of the drama that's been occurring over on some of the other Facebook art groups, and I'm really happy to say that the odd few posts that I've had to sort of remove, we've had a few people posting those silly what looks like dating websites or something like that, so they've got no place in an art group. Like I've said before, my goal with this Facebook group and these tutorials was to sort of draw along with people and have a go at maybe drawing a few things that you've never had a go at. For beginners, it's showing you a tried and tested method of learning how to draw and getting the foundations in place and understanding what each pencil does. And from there, you can then go on and do as little or as much as you want. But I just think it's quite a nice community thing for us to be drawing along together. Although this isn't in exactly real time, I am recording this. I do some live drawings as well, and maybe that's something that we can explore in the future, maybe doing a few more live drawing sessions. But I do know that we've got quite a lot of members from all over the world, so timings might be quite difficult there. If this is the first time that you've watched one of my videos, thanks so much for clicking on it. I hope you're following along with it. I do know that some people watch a little bit of the video and then come back to it at a later date. This is really one of the ways that I learned to draw. I did various different online classes a few years ago, and a lot of them were exactly like this, drawing along step by step and just picking up methods and techniques, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. Obviously that was something that I paid for, and I wanted to try and give something back now. I've sort of got to a level where I'm quite happy to be able to try and teach some of you guys some of the methods that I've learnt and some of the techniques that I've picked up myself. So I've decided to make a series of videos. I had no intention of, or no real idea of how many I wanted to get done, but we're on lesson 22 now, so that's wonderful. I'm really happy that we're sort of that far on. I'm going to start working in this area now. So again, I'm just picking out some of the darkest areas. Now, I did have a couple of comments. I can't remember if it was on one of my videos itself or if it was on the Facebook page, or it might have even been on Instagram. And somebody says, I can't believe when you're doing your videos that you don't have a sheet of paper underneath your hand. Ordinarily I would do, and that's going to stop me smudging. But I just don't think that it makes a very good video. If a lot of my work's obscured, I just don't think it gives you the best account of what I'm doing. And obviously these are just drawings that are going to sit in a cupboard or go somewhere. They're not commissions for anybody, so I'm not too concerned if I do smudge and lose some of the detail. But it's certainly something that I would recommend doing. Maybe getting a sheet of clean paper underneath your hand there as you're drawing, just so that you're not losing some of the highlighted areas, which is the main issue really. You might have worked really hard to get a nice highlight in this cheek, and then by moving the paper around and smudging it, you lose that. But like I say, it's not something that we can't undo. So I just wanted to give you guys the best experience possible and see most of the work. But like I say, if this is the first time that you visited, go and check out our Facebook group. It's called Tutorial Tuesdays Beginner to Pro. You can find a link to that in the descriptions down below. We're a really friendly group. Like I say, we're nearly 2,000. We're around about 2,000 members now. And it's a great place for you to post your progress work from the lessons, but it's also a nice place for you to comment and encourage one another, but also show us some of your work that you've been doing independently to the classes. As long as we don't get spammy, posting offensive work, that there's plenty of art groups out there that people are posting offensive work, and I understand that art is very subjective and some people don't mind political drawings or something like a nude portrait, which, you know, I've got no issue personally with, but I do know that it does offend some people. So we're trying to keep this group as friendly as possible and as inclusive as possible. So like I say, I'm really happy to say so far that we've managed to cultivate quite an adult group, and not saying that there's only adults in there. There might be a few teenagers and whatnot, which is fab, but we are quite mature, should I say. Lots of words of encouragement. It's lovely waking up some mornings to some of the kind comments that I'm seeing from people. Okay, we've got to work a little bit more into this area. So I can see this is a very dark zone here, but this is also dark, so I need to make sure that I do capture this area. This is an overlapping amount of hair. This is probably going underneath, or it might even just be a completely absent area in there. It's a dark shadow. So before I start bringing any value into this zone here, I do need to make sure that I've got myself, it's almost a clean edge, and we've spoken about clean edges before. I want to differentiate this area of hair to this clump of hair. So again, one of the things that I don't do an awful lot when we're in class here is I don't move the paper around nearly as much as I would do if I wasn't filming. Again, because I want you to try and get a really nice experience and understand exactly what I'm doing. But I really would recommend moving the paper around so that you can keep your stroke as accurate as possible. And I can see within this area here now that we have got some much lighter areas. We've got some darker areas. And again, I'm using the 2B pencil. It's when we're drawing hair, the same as a lot of fabrics, we want some of the graphite to move around when we start to brush. So we don't need to fill the tooth of the paper in exactly the same way that we would do when we're drawing skin. So I'm going to use this 2B pencil initially, give myself a nice amount of graphite to work with. And then we're going to use the brush an awful lot, and we're going to use the eraser. So again, I'm just getting some of these basic shapes in place. Now remembering, as this hair curls around and under there, this area here is going to be the darkest area. And if I can create that, it's going to give the illusion that the hair is bending round, exactly the same as this cheek is bending around out of our view, out of our line of sight. And we represent that by going slightly darker. The same in here. Anything that goes away from the light, any object or point that is further away from the light is always going to be darker. I'm going to give that a little bit of a brush now. So using my brush, it's a 2-inch brush, 2-inch thickness there. It's very soft. A makeup brush will do just fine as well. And I'm just going to start to move some of this initial value and graphite around, brushing it, not worrying about brushing it into the lighter areas, because we do need some value in there. We're never going to leave anything on the paper completely white. What that gives us then is it gives us a very flat looking object, whether that be hair or the side of a face or an eye. So just moving some of this graphite around now. Now you'll notice as I'm working around certain areas that I turn the pencil. So I'm constantly turning the pencil so that I've always got the sharpest edge. And because I'm holding the pencil so loosely, the angle that I'm sort of coming in on the paper at is not straight down. I'm not coming at it straight down and blunting the end of the pencil, but I'm sort of gliding on and off. And what this does is it self-sharpens the pencil for me. So you'll very rarely see me actually having to sharpen the pencil. And that's good for a couple of reasons. It saves you a bit of time. If you've had to sharpen your pencil 300 times over the duration of a piece of work, if we can save you a bit of that time, then that's all well and good. And it also ends up saving you money. The more you sharpen the pencil, the shorter it gets, and eventually you need to buy yourself a new set of pencils. I've been working with these Caran D'ache pencils now for probably 2.5 years. It's about a year into my drawing. I went through the phase that I'm sure some of you guys are going through now, and that's trying out lots of different types of pencil. It's trying different methods out and really working on different types of mediums. And I came across these Caran D'ache pencils and really enjoyed them, really liked the way that they laid down. I could get some nice dark values with them. So I've had these now for 2.5 years. 2.5 years. And I haven't had to buy any more. Some of you can see my 4B. If I show you my 4B, it's getting quite short now. So I might need to be purchasing. In actual fact, I have got some new ones in my cupboard that haven't been used yet. I got those for Christmas this year, or the Christmas just gone. And because we don't press on hard with this technique, we are only just building the values up with some very, very light touches. It saves the pencil and just allows you a little bit more time with each pencil. You don't, like I say, you're not bearing down into it and causing the pencils to wear thin or wear down low, whatever you call it. So we really are just in the initial stages here. We're just And it's the thing with hair, I think that initially it doesn't look very good. It takes a while for it to start looking as though we're getting some of the right shapes in. Now, I'm at quite an important point here. I've marked this out. This strand of hair here, this is the lightest part. This is actually the lightest part on the entire drawing. And it's this one coming down here. So I need to be careful that I don't get too much value in this zone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start adding some of the value in and around this now. And this is where patience comes in, and having a keen eye for spotting some of these details. Where's the highlight in this drawing? Or this photograph reference image? Where's the area that is the lightest? And I need to protect that as best as I can. So it's this area here. In fact, I'm just going to start taking, I bet you, if I use my Mono Zero eraser now, even though I haven't actually added any value into this area, I bet you we can take some out because of, yeah. So straight away I can remove quite a bit of graphite just from the excess graphite that's been moved around when I've brushed in from the cheeks when we were doing the face. So I'm going to take that back almost to the paper. And then I'm going to really work hard to protect that highlight there, because that is one that, you know, almost this whole region here, this here, using this Mono Zero eraser in exactly the same way that I use my pencil. So I'm drawing it towards me. So back to the 2B pencil. Now I can just start to build in some of this value around there. One of the 3 pillars of drawing realistically is getting this contrast in. I've spoken about this over the last few videos. And it's getting the contrast right, and that's one of those opportunities there. That we're going to have to really define and build in some realism. One of the beautiful things about this tapered stroke that we've been working on, and if you haven't understood the tapered stroke or even watched the lessons that talks about it, go and have a look at lessons 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 1 to 6. And we really go into some depth about this tapered stroke and how we're laying down these lines to represent hairs in this case. And what a tapered stroke is I'm pulling the pencil towards me, but I'm imagining that I'm an aeroplane coming into land. So the tip of my pencil is an aeroplane, and it swoops in, hits the paper and swoops off again. And what that gives me is it gives me a thinner start and a thinner exit of the stroke. And this is fantastic for building up hair layers. What we don't then have is we don't have cut-off lines and cut-off marks with each stroke that really just breaks the realism. And with this hair, it starts to flow beautifully from one strand to another, because we've obviously got one long strand of hair coming down, and this hair is built up with those very long strands of hair. And I just need to get the general direction of these hairs. And again, it was a lesson that I vividly remember learning and turning a corner with it. I really struggled with hair in the early days, and it was all because I was pressing on too hard. I was trying to get the dark values in too quickly. And what that meant was I couldn't take the subtle strands of hair out with the erasers. Now, even if we're drawing somebody with dark hair, if we're looking for realism, there are going to be areas that are lighter, particularly the highlighted areas. This young girl isn't showing it massively, but let's say you were drawing a male with very dark black hair. There will be a point that is reflecting the light, a little bit like in the eye. And if you can capture that and get that hair shine, you give the viewer a sense of realism. And like I was saying, in the early days, when I was learning various different techniques, I would press on too hard, much too hard with the pencil, and I'd find it very difficult to take out the realistic little strands of hair. So what I ended up with was what I call spaghetti hair, where I've got very big, thick lines of hair being taken out, and it just loses the realism factor. And I think I recall seeing some work that was placed up over on the Facebook group. It was the Eye Project, where there was a few of you that were really struggling with the hair, and it reminded me of what I used to do. And my advice to you, if you feel that that's you, you've got to get yourself one of these Mono Zero erasers first. You can get them from Amazon. They're very cheap, a couple of pounds, a few dollars if you're in the States. And really practice laying this hair down very, very lightly and building the values up gradually. Then you're going to be able to start to take out some of these wonderful opportunities, these hairs that are going against the flow. They're coming over the face here and they're crisscrossing over an overlapping area. And it's those final touches that when we get to them, they're really going to set our drawing off and make it look wonderful. But I like I say, I can remember vividly the drawing that I was doing when I finally started to begin to lay down the value much lighter, and hence giving me a brilliant opportunity to take out some of those subtle hairs. So I'm just following some of these patterns within this hair in here in the shadowed areas. I can see a general shape and a direction that the hairs are going in, and I'm just following those loosely to start with. And again, we're working in the negative space. We're working in the strands or the areas between the strands of hair, particularly in the blonde zones, the very light zones. We're using the graphite that produces, or that spreads around the paper using our brush, to then start to take out some of the blonder hairs, the whiter hairs. And it's that process that we are going to keep repeating. By the time we get to this scarf or cardigan, what we've got, we're going to have quite a lot of value that's spread into this area already from the hair. So we're going to be able to simply just start to take out some of the lighter areas, maybe just add a few of the details, but we're not going to have to apply an awful lot of graphite in those areas. So I've been looking ahead recently at some more images online that we can possibly have a go at in future lessons. I know that there's a few of you out there that are keen to have a go at some animals, maybe pet dogs or cats or something like that. So we're definitely going to do something like that. I've been looking at a few landscapes and a few interesting photographs of old farmyard buildings and barns and things like that have got some brilliant character and textures. But if you've got any ideas, you've got any requests and anything that you'd like, possibly to have a go at, then let me know over on the Facebook group or leave me a comment down below in the video. I really want to get as many people as possible learning some of these techniques and beginning to build up their confidence and their skills, because drawing's really changed my life. It's something now that I can't imagine not having in my life, and I really would like as many of you to experience that as possible. I don't believe it's a God-given gift. I believe anybody can learn to draw. It requires a lot of patience and a lot of time. That's really it. I'm going to give this another brush now. I think we've got quite a lot more value in these areas. But you can start to see now, after 25 minutes or so of laying down some initial areas of the hairs, working in the negative spaces, we are now getting a fairly accurate representation of what we've got in our reference image. We've still got a lot of work to do. We've still got a lot more value to put down. But I'm hoping you're understanding the methodology and the processes that we're going through, and that we're going to keep on going through. And what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to create some real volume in this, because the beautiful thing about this, you can see that this young lady has got very thick hair. It's not dissimilar to one of my daughter's hairs, actually. My eldest daughter, she's got extremely thick hair. It's beautiful. I mean, you can do anything you want with her hair. Curl it, put it up, have it short. She could have pretty much any hairstyle she wanted. But I want to get that across in this drawing, that we're looking at somebody with very, very thick hair. And we've got hair moving in different directions in this area here. We've got some hair which is coming around this way, but then we have got hair that's coming over here. So just making sure that we observe that. And I think that the skill that you develop the most learning to draw, and this is why I take so much time and care over looking at the reference images, is you become somebody that sees things that not many people see. Different values, different shades, different directions that things go in. And having the opportunity to then bring that out in your drawing, which is ultimately where we lead up to being able to draw freehand, which is, I know, something that people are keen to do, and I can understand why. It's almost the pinnacle of an artist, being able to draw something freehand. But like anything, it's a process, and it's learning to see things. Where does this part of the hair line up with? Where does an eye line up with? Where does this person's lip end and cheek start? Everybody's slightly different. But it's gaining those skills by doing things like this, using the grid method, using your geared divider. So I learned to draw in what I would say this traditional method first, just using the pencil and an eraser. Not using blending stumps and things like that. So a very sort of traditional way of drawing. It's the way I learnt. And then a couple of years or a year and a half into drawing, I started experimenting with coloured markers and things like that. I just wanted to build some more skills up while still doing a lot of portraits. But I started doing a lot of anime, transformer type work, cartoon characters, Pokemon, things like that. And I was absolutely amazed at how well I could freehand them. So I hadn't had a go at freehanding anything. I just went through this period of learning how to draw the way that I'm teaching you. And then my freehanding work was fairly accurate. You know, I'm not going to say it's absolutely perfect. I don't think anybody's freehanding work's absolutely perfect. But it was very accurate, and it almost surprised me how, without practicing freehand work, my freehanding had got better. And it's because of the things that I've been talking to you about. Being able to see. That's ultimately what a freehander can do. So I think we're sort of getting to the end of what I wanted to show you today with today's lesson. I'm quite happy to just let you get on with this. I want you to keep refining the darkest areas in this hair. And when we come back to next week's lesson, what I'm hopefully going to have is I'm going to have built up some of the value and some of the shapes in the rest of these large clumps of hair. And then we can really start defining some of the highlights and picking out some of the details and starting to do a little bit of work with our 4B pencil, again, in some of these darkest areas. Don't be afraid to use your Mono Zero eraser or whatever eraser you have. I mean, I can remember in the early days when I started learning to draw, before I had a Mono Zero eraser, I would just trim a normal eraser down so that I've got a pointy end in certain areas and use that. So whatever you've got access to, give it a go. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button. I really appreciate all of the great feedback you've been giving me. If you've got any comments about this video or any of the previous videos or lessons, then don't forget, leave me a comment down below. It'd be really great to connect with you over on Instagram as well. You can find me at Artistic Nick, that's N1K again, which is the same as the YouTube channel name. And I will endeavour to get some more of this done. I'm really looking forward to seeing your progress over in the Facebook group. And I'll see you all in the next video. It's been a pleasure drawing with you again. And thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, smack the notifications button, follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.